I've been doing low buy for a number of years now, not just for luxury items, but for everything else as well. Compared to 7 to 8 years ago, my expenses have gone down very substantially. So at times, I like to think I just don't get tempted that easily. But in reality, my willpower is not the only thing that makes low buy a sustainable routine for me. Truthfully, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm just not subjected to that many temptations on a daily basis. In my everyday life, not many people are that interested in luxury shopping, so I don't see a new designer bag every other week. I also don't live in a major city where shopping is a common sight. On social media, I actually intentionally avoid content that has a heavy focus on shopping. So in a way, I don't have to deal with a lot of fear of missing out or FOMO or the need to impress anyone. And that had been a great stepping stone, especially when I was new to this whole low buy thing. And eventually with time, it became easier and easier to the point I've become quite a rational spender. But I'm certainly not suggesting that I never get tempted, because I still do occasionally. In fact, a few weeks ago, I went to a new friend's house and she has an amazing collection of luxury handbags. And one of the bags was a small Dior book tote. Now, for a long time, I had been saying I would never spend so much money on a canvas bag. But seeing that Dior bag on her, I was momentarily tempted. And I started checking the different sizes and prices on the Dior website. By the way, the one in the size small is so adorable, and it really reminds me of my beloved Hermes Birkin 25. But here's the thing, I didn't buy the bag in the end. Whereas if it was me 8 to 9 years ago, I wouldn't have been as level-headed. And believe me, I had made plenty of such purchases in the past. The point I'm making here is, whether if you believe in minimalism or not, we all get tempted now and again, especially if you enjoy nice things or if you like investing in quality items. But the difference lies in what you do with that temptation, because you can either give into the FOMO and buy the bag, or you can acknowledge the FOMO for what it is and then move on with your life. If you think about it, FOMO shopping is essentially a kind of emotional shopping. Even if your intention isn't to impress anyone or to keep up with the trend, we humans are born with the desire to blend in and to feel belonged. This is why our environment can have such an impact on what we buy and how we spend. So let's say you work in a luxury store. It's very likely you will also consume luxury shopping. For example, I've seen several Van Cleef sales associates who also wear Van Cleef pieces. And if you work in a setting where everyone wears expensive watches and designer everything, that can start to become your norm. And if your colleagues all drive really fancy cars, it can also influence your choice of vehicle, even if subconsciously. Other times, FOMO can completely cloud our judgment, especially in the presence of social media. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Stanley Cups, because I hadn't until a few days ago. Apparently, these went viral on TikTok, and many influencers seem to have a huge collection of every single color, which I personally find a bit strange, because the whole idea of using a reusable flask is to be sustainable in the first place. Anyway, these flasks cost about $50 and they've been selling out everywhere in America. In celebration of Valentine's Day, they also released a special edition, and apparently people were physically fighting each other to try to get one of these. This is an extreme example, of course, but it just shows how FOMO can completely take over if you are not careful. Personally, I had wasted so much money on FOMO shopping. Fortunately for me though, I've never been interested in cars, so even though people around me are driving really nice cars, I've never been swayed to get something really fancy. But with everything else, my FOMO always got the better of me. I bought a Sellier bag in the wrong color just because the sales associate told me it would be impossible to get one in black, because back then they were so popular. I also bought a Chanel boy bag in the wrong size just because it was the last one in the country. I even bought shoes that were too big for me just because they were heavily discounted. And of course, I applied the same shopping pattern to everything else, such as groceries, skincare, and everyday items. So believe me when I say FOMO shopping can absolutely keep you poor. And here are some shopping behaviors that might be motivated by FOMO or the need to impress other people. Please let me know if you can relate to any of these. The first one is buying new outfits or shoes or bags because you are worried about repeating what you wear. I'm glad to say this one is something that I no longer lose sleep over because I've come to realize maximizing the usage of everything I own is simply a wonderful thing. And most importantly, no one really pays that much attention to us anyway. Another form of FOMO shopping is upgrading just because. This can apply to cars, houses, electronic gadgets, bags, and you name it. In the UK, the average car ownership is 2 years, which is crazy because we all know cars are depreciating assets. Not only that, most of the depreciation also happens in the first few years. This means if you go for an upgrade every 2 years, you are essentially funding the depreciation for the next buyer. Another common thing people like to upgrade is phone. To be fair, we use our phone so much nowadays, so it makes sense to invest in something that's reliable, but I personally don't see the point of upgrading just because there's a new version. Nowadays, a lot of phones come with very decent camera and usability, so any upgrade might only give you very marginal improvement. In a strange way, I actually get enjoyment from using my electronic gadgets to the ground. Recently, my little boy accidentally cracked my phone screen and I didn't get upset because I've been using this phone for over 6 years, so I'm not overly protective about it. But if this was a brand new phone, I probably wouldn't feel as casual about it. Anyway, it looks like it might be time for a new phone after all, which is a bummer because I was really hoping this phone would last me a few more years. The next kind of FOMO shopping is fueled by what I call the special edition scarcity. For some reason, as soon as something comes in a limited supply, we go crazy for them. Brands obviously know this, and that's why they capitalize on our desire for exclusivity and our sense of urgency. A perfect example is the collaboration between Louis Vuitton and Supreme. In Miami, Tokyo, and London, thousands of people lined up to get these pieces. And unsurprisingly, the resale prices also skyrocketed on the pre-loved market. Of course, some people might really enjoy the bright red design, but we can also argue that the design is irrelevant here because people are happy to pay just for the novelty of scarcity. I mean, when you wear a Louis Vuitton Supreme hoodie, you immediately give a certain impression, even if that's not your intention. I mean, it's just so easy for people to assume that you either have access to very rare collectibles or you can afford to pay a premium to get whatever you want from a consignment service. And those things kind of suggest that you are in a place of privilege. I often wonder if the Louis Vuitton Supreme line would do as well if it was a permanent collection. Let me know what you think. Another way you might be doing FOMO shopping is where you feel like everything you use has to be from a well-known brand. For example, your coffee has to be Starbucks, kettle and toaster have to be from Smack, water has to be Evian, stationery has to be Mont Blanc, and even your socks have to be designers. Years ago, before I met my husband, I was determined that my engagement ring had to be from Tiffany & Co. Now, the truth is, I wasn't and I still am not a diamond expert, but I knew Tiffany & Co. was a luxury brand. And so, if anyone happened to ask where my ring was from, I could proudly say that it was from Tiffany. I know it sounds really shallow, but the younger version of me was eager to impress people around me. Now, I'm not against paying more for quality items. But I think there are times when we need to slow down and ask ourselves if we can really tell the difference in terms of quality, or do we perhaps just want people to think that we are able to afford those expensive brand names. And those are some of my thoughts about FOMO spending and buying things to impress other people. Like I said, I've been doing low buy for quite some time now, but I'm certainly not perfect. At times, I still feel tempted to buy things just because of FOMO, but I'm glad to say most of the time I'm able to regain control and stay true to myself. Let me know if you can relate to anything I've talked about in this video. Thank you so much for being here. Take care, and I'll see you soon.